Well, we go now for our Mozambique market update to Manuel Gameiro, who is head of risk at Banc ABC. Good morning, Manuel. Let's talk firstly about inflation. Headline CPI a little bit higher in April compared to 4.27% in March, 4.9, nearly 5% at the moment. So what's the effect of this going to be and how important is it?
Good morning. Yes, correct. The inflation rate went up to 5.06%. I'm talking about the year-on-year inflation rate in April. If you see in December last year, the inflation rate was just basically 2.18%. So the current year is being more inflationary than the previous one. And actually, the central bank has come up and say that they are even expecting a high inflation rate in the second quarter of the year. Basically, as you know, the country was affected by floods in the beginning of the year, which affected the south part of the country, in combination of the depreciation that the domestic currency witnessed against the US dollars. I think those were the main factors that have driven this high inflation rate in the current year.
Right, and then I suppose that would have an influence on the repo rate on the central bank. What about policy there on rates?
Well, if you notice in the last year, because the inflation rate went really down up to almost 2.2%, it was very accommodative, and the central bank cut 6 times the repo rate down to 9.5%. But because of the inflation, the high inflation rate that we have been witnessing this year, the central bank has been very cautious, and even in the last meeting, they decided to keep the repo rate at 9.5%. But in my view, if the inflation rate continues on the increasing path, I see that they may have some pressure to probably adjust upward the repo rate. That's my view.
And let's just move, Manuel, beyond the technicalities of economic management of the country. There's been a news report about the main export route for coal being disrupted by people protesting, apparently brick makers who were resettled because of mining activities. Protests there, and an economy that's struggling to grow and is heavily dependent on a resource like coal. This could be quite disruptive.
Well, you are quite right, but it's well known that the infrastructure represents one of the main constraints. But the good news is that there is a lot of initiatives being put in place in terms of new railways, basically increasing the capacity in the railways and even the ports. So I think, yes, as we speak, we have that constraint, but in the medium to long term, this is going to be solved because the initiatives that are being put in place by the government and even the private sector will definitely remove that constraint because, as you well said, mineral resources are going to be of a huge impact in the economic growth of Mozambique. And because of that, even the central bank has come out reviewing downward the expected economic growth for this year. Initially, it was 8.4%, but now they've reviewed downward to 7%, basically because of the constraints that we have been witnessing on the infrastructure side. But as I said, it's a problem with solutions, and I think the prospects are quite positive.